On the day before our engagement, my boyfriend vanished. The police found his blood-stained clothes abandoned by the shore. Everyone told me to move on and accept his death. Without a single tear or tantrum, I turned around and registered my marriage with his best friend. 5 years later, we crossed paths at a high-end bridal boutique. My ex-boyfriend, Mason, was accompanying a strange girl, picking out a wedding dress. His friends quickly stepped in to smooth things over. Mason was kidnapped back then, Scarlett. He barely escaped with his life but lost his memory. Don't hold it against him. Mason sized me up coldly. So, you're my star-crossed ex? You don't look like much. Seeing how you've pinned for me all these years, I suppose I could bring myself to marry you. Before I could utter a word, my 3-year-old daughter stepped defensively in front of me. Mister, don't bully my mommy, or I'll tell my daddy to beat you up. Looking at the little girl who had suddenly appeared, Mason frowned. The friend beside him looked utterly perplexed. Scarlett, who is this little girl? Did you adopt a goddaughter? It was no wonder they were jumping to conclusions. Back then, I had been utterly obsessed with Mason, dead set on marrying no one else. That stubbornness of mine had been a major headache for both our parents and our circle of friends. After Mason went missing, everyone was terrified I would do something reckless, trying to comfort and counsel me both openly and secretly. I had no interest in dealing with Mason's toxic circle of friends, so I said bluntly, "You've mistaken me for someone else. I am not your ex-girlfriend. And let me introduce her. This is my daughter. My biological child." I scooped up my daughter. Preparing to leave the boutique, the shop assistant called out from behind, "Mum, your custom wedding dress is ready." Without turning around, I replied, "Throw it away. The remaining balance will be wired to your account." Mason couldn't contain himself after all. He blocked my path just before I reached the door. "Your name is Scarlett, right? My friends told me about us that I had my accident the day before our engagement. Even though I don't remember you, I'll still fulfill my promise. There's no need to bring a little girl here just to spite me." Mason put on an innocent facade, but deep in his eyes lay a smug satisfaction. He took it for granted that because I loved him so deeply, there was no way I could have married and had a child with someone else just a few years after his disappearance. To him, it was an absolute impossibility. Then, he turned his gaze to the daughter in my arms. "Little girl, tell uncle, who is your mommy?" My daughter replied in her sweet, babyish voice, "This is my mommy. My mommy's name is Scarlett, Scarlett." The smile on Mason's face didn't fade a bit as he continued gently, "Little girl, lying is bad manners." Seeing that Mason wanted to persist, I cut him off sharply. "Sir, you have the wrong person. If you continue this behavior, I will call the police and report you for harassment." Mason rubbed his nose sheepishly and reluctantly stepped aside to let us through. Once they were sure I had left, the friend beside him patted Mason on the shoulder. "Mason, it looks like you overplayed your hand this time. By the looks of it, Scarlett is genuinely furious." Mason waved his hand dismissively. "Don't worry, we grew up together. I know her character inside out. She'll be mad for a few days at most. I'll play along for another month. And then I'll tell her my memory has returned. I guarantee she'll throw her arms around me and cry tears of joy." Act 2, behind the veil. Holding my daughter, I returned to the villa. Oliver was in the kitchen preparing dinner. Hearing the door, Lily happily threw herself into Oliver's arms. "Daddy, a mean uncle bullied mommy at the dress shop today. You have to teach him a lesson for mommy." The little thing balled up her tiny fists, looking fiercely adorable. A cold flash darted through Oliver's eyes. Just as he was about to press for details, his phone rang. "Sweetheart, grab daddy's phone for me." Oliver's hands were covered in grease, so he had to ask our daughter for help. Lily's tiny hands fumbled in Oliver's pocket and expertly switched the call to speakerphone. "Ollie, I must have crossed a black cat today. I bumped into Scarlett at the bridal boutique. She seems genuinely pissed off, and she even brought a little girl to try and make me jealous. I've really stepped in it this time. You're my best friend. You've got to help me out." Mason's voice boomed through the speaker, echoing loudly across the spacious living room. Oliver's expression shifted instantly, and he cut the call immediately. I looked at him with a half smile. "Your best friend. You simply must help him out. You know." Lily tilted her small head, completely bewildered. "Daddy? Why does that person's voice sound exactly like the mean uncle who bullied mommy at the shop?" Oliver abruptly changed the subject. "Dinner's ready. Let's eat." Mason and I were childhood sweethearts. Growing up side by side, he had a bright, lively personality and a silver tongue that easily charmed girls. During college, to pursue him, I would constantly run down to his dormitory building to confess my feelings. I handed out love letters in his classrooms and brought him breakfast. Everyone around us watched with a mix of envy and jealousy. I put the word out. Mason is my, Scarlett's, designated boyfriend. Anyone who dares cross him will have to answer to me. Our families were a perfect match in terms of social standing. He treated me wonderfully too, taking me skiing, skydiving, and introducing me to various high society galas. Everyone naturally assumed we were a done deal. The parents from both sides helped us pick the perfect date for the wedding. But the day before the engagement, Mason vanished. Everyone mobilized to search for him, and eventually, the police were involved. They found his blood-stained clothes by the shore, leading them to assume he had met with foul play that evening. I received a video from an unknown number. In the video, Mason was clinking glasses with a strange girl, laughing with wild, reckless abandon. Marriage is the graveyard of romance. Hud want to dive into that so early. I'll fake my death and run wild for a few years. When I'm too exhausted to play around anymore, I'll marry Scarlett. In the meantime, help me counsel her so she doesn't do anything stupid. Someone asked him, "Aren't you afraid Scarlett will just turn around and marry someone else?" Mason sneered. "Set your mind completely at ease. I know Scarlett's personality like the back of my hand. Forget the fact that I'm alive. Even if I were truly dead, she would remain a chaste widow for my sake." The video cut off abruptly there. All my grief disintegrated into a pathetic joke in that single moment. The next morning, I crossed paths with Oliver outside City Hall, who was being pressured into an arranged marriage by his own family. I asked him, "Want to get a marriage certificate?" "You and me." Oliver pushed up his gold-rimmed glasses, his face unreadable and devoid of any emotional ripples. He simply replied with a single word, "Okay." Just like that, Oliver and I became legal husband and wife. No wedding ceremony, just a registered certificate. We didn't inform a single relative or friend. During dinner, Oliver spoke up, "If you weren't satisfied with that wedding dress today, I've already instructed the designer to start over. Go ahead and communicate your ideas and requirements to them." I replied indifferently, "We'll talk about that later." Oliver frowned. "Are you planning on letting my daughter remain an illegitimate child for the rest of her life?" I put down my chopsticks. "Oliver, we had an agreement back then. I would help you deal with the endless line of women and your family's relentless pressure to marry, while you would keep an eye on Mason's movements. If it hadn't been for that accidental drunken night, I wouldn't have given birth to this child at all. When I found out I was pregnant, I wanted an abortion. You were the one who repeatedly promised me everything would be fine, which is why I kept her. If you're afraid people will gossip about her, you are more than welcome to officially give her the status of a Vance Group heiress. As for my identity, I have no intention of making it public just yet." Oliver let out a cold laugh, scooped up Lily, and walked away. Act 3, The Shadow of Obsession. Just like that, a month passed. Oliver quietly applied pressure to suppress Mason's company at every turn. A month later, Mason sent me a text, only to realize he never got a reply. He tried calling, only to discover his number was blocked. He resorted to using a friend's phone to dial my number. "Scarlett, I have great news. My memory is back." Without saying a word, I hung up, thinking I hadn't heard him clearly. Mason used his friend's phone to text me again. "Scarlett, I have amazing news. My memory has returned. It's me, Mason. You've suffered so much over these years. From now on, I'll shield you from all life storms. Call me back as soon as you see this. I miss you." A freezing chill swept through Oliver's eyes as he grabbed the phone and replied directly, "My wife is taking a shower and it's inconvenient. If you have something to say, tell me directly." Mason instantly lost his cool, and his calls began bombarding the phone. Oliver blocked and deleted the number with absolute, ruthless efficiency. The next day, Mason waited for me along my usual driving route. Seeing me driving alone, he breathed a visible sigh of relief. "Scarlett, I bought you your favorite bagels with cream cheese. Look, they're still piping hot." As he spoke, Mason familiarly pulled open my passenger door and slid into the car. The greasy scent of the buns flooded the cabin, making me knit my brows. "Get out." Mason froze. "Scarlett, are you still mad at me?" I had amnesia back then. I really didn't know about our relationship. If I had known, I never would have said things to hurt you. Before I could speak, Mason proudly proffered the buns to me like a trophy. The greasy bacon odor made me want to gag. I snatched the breakfast from his hands and hurled it straight into the trash can outside the window. "I never eat steamed buns," I said, enunciating every syllable as I stared at him. Mason slapped his forehead in vexation. Scarlett, I'm so sorry. I just got my memory back, so I haven't recalled all your preferences yet. My bad. Completely my bad. What do you like to eat? I'll have my driver go buy it right now. I'll say it one last time. Get out of my car. I issued my final ultimatum, my face completely cold. Mason maintained his playful, grinning demeanor. Scarlett, I truly know I messed up. Why don't you hit me a couple of times to blow off steam? Now that I'm back safe and sound, the elders from both our families are waiting for our wedding. You've been throwing a tantrum for so long. Surely you've had enough. We have so many years of history together, we can't just throw it all away over a minor hitch like this. I didn't waste any more words and straight up ordered security to drag him out. Immediately after hitting a brick wall with me, Mason's little girlfriend turned up. Mason, honey, didn't you say you were going to buy me breakfast? The girl was the exact same one I had seen at the bridal shop. She looked to be around 20, with a bit of cute baby fat. Mason's taste in women really hadn't degraded. Chloe, be a good girl. I have business to take care of right now. Go back on your own first. Mason spoke as he slid a card into her hands. There's $100,000 in here. The pin is your birthday. Buy whatever you want, and let me know if it's not enough. After a great deal of pampering and coaxing, he finally sent her away. Chloe worked part-time at a local coffee shop. She was 22, came from a deeply impoverished family that favored sons over daughters, and had been forced to drop out of school to support her brother's education. Upon learning this, Mason had grandly acquired the entire local coffee shop and bought her a villa to boot. Mason had left his jacket in my car. The moment I walked over, I caught this wonderful little show. Your jacket. It dirtied my car, I said, tossing the garment at his feet. Mason's eyes lit up instantly. Scarlett, you still care about me, don't you? Otherwise, you wouldn't have come all this way just to return my jacket. Things aren't what they look like. I just felt sorry for that girl. You have no idea how awful her parents are. I cut through his endless babble directly. I have zero interest in her family matters. Before Mason could say anything else, my phone rang. I answered it right in front of him, keeping it on speakerphone. Wife, why haven't you come upstairs yet? The voice carried clearly into Mason's ears. I ran into a minor issue down here. I'll be up in a minute. Oliver's voice came through again. All right, honey. Take your time, drive safely. Lily and I are waiting at our usual spot. Love you. With a sudden burst of force, Mason snatched the phone right out of my hand. Are you an actor Scarlett hired? How much is she paying you? I'll pay you double no. 10 times that amount. Oliver's voice dropped to a freezing register. Mason Sterling, I am Scarlett's husband. I do not appreciate you bothering us ever again. Mason found the voice vaguely familiar, but he still couldn't place exactly who was on the other end of the line. Just as he was about to press further, the phone flashed a low battery warning and shut down. I rubbed my temples. I had left the house in such a hurry that I forgot to charge it. Snatching my phone back, I turned to leave. Scarlett, you don't need to put on a show just to spite me. That guy just now, he's a professional actor you hired, right? I've got to admit, he sounded pretty convincing. Mason clapped his hand to his forehead as if remembering something. I almost forgot the main reason I came. There's a charity gala tonight, and I'll be representing my family. Don't forget to show up. Act 4. Power Dynamics. I arrived at Oliver's office to find our daughter quietly playing with building blocks. His office used to be dominated by a bleak, dark gray palette. Ever since Lily started coming over, he had converted a corner into a mini indoor playground. Even Oliver's private lounge had been remodeled into a children's bedroom. When I walked in, Oliver was standing with his back to me before the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the street below. From that vantage point, everything that had transpired at the entrance just moments ago was perfectly visible. At tonight's charity gala, I intend to officially reveal our relationship and the child's identity, Oliver stated without an ounce of preamble. Cutting straight to the chase, I refuse. I declined outright. Give me a reason, Oliver replied, keeping it brief. You know better than anyone that when two powerful families intermarry. Before I could finish, Oliver cut me off. Don't use those high-sounding, corporate excuses to stall me. Whether it's about family politics or because of Mason Sterling, you know the truth deep down in your heart. Oliver stepped closer, closing the distance between us. A heavy, suffocating pressure washed over me, causing me to involuntarily take a step back. He pinched my chin firmly. Scarlett, my patience has its limits. Do not test my boundaries. I slapped his hand away. my voice turning equally icy. Oliver, no one can force me to do what I don't want to do, including you. If you feel this arrangement is unfair, we can terminate it at any moment. City Hall is open tomorrow morning. We can go sign the divorce papers whenever you please. Oliver stared at me for a long time, an unreadable emotion swirling deep within his dark eyes. Act V. A mother's fury. I hadn't intended to show up at the charity gala that evening, but Lily had slipped out past the staff when we weren't paying attention. Miss Avery, I am so terribly sorry. I assumed the little lady had your permission to go look for you. The butler apologized profusely. Oliver's expression turned incredibly grim. If a single hair on my daughter's head is harmed, none of you will need to bother showing up for work ever again. I pulled up the voice message my daughter had left for me. Mommy, don't fight with Daddy anymore. It's all the mean uncle's fault. Baby is going to find that mean uncle and teach him a lesson so he can never bully Mommy again. Our car tore through the streets, blowing past several red lights in a blur. When we reached the venue, Oliver questioned the security guards at the gate, but they claimed they hadn't seen any little girl matching the description. My heart hammered as I dialed my daughter's smartwatch tracker dozens of times, but it repeatedly showed that the device was turned off. Oliver mobilized every single man under his command to search the area. He and I split up. Just as I turned a corner, I ran straight into Mason, who was accompanying Chloe, dressed in a formal gown. Mason's eyes illuminated. Scarlet. I knew you'd come. He glanced over my shoulder. Who was that just now? Because of the angle, Mason had only caught a brief glimpse of Oliver's departing back. I didn't have the patience for pleasantries and went straight to the point. Mason Sterling, I'm asking you, where is my daughter? Mason looked utterly blank. What daughter? Scarlet. This act has gone far enough. You're overdoing it. Chloe's eyes flared with intense hostility as she looked at me. I didn't bother wasting another breath on them and turned to leave. You mean that little girl wearing a floral dress, with her hair in twin pigtails, holding a stuffed rabbit? Chloe's voice made my steps freeze instantly. Where is she? I spun around, taking 3 quick strides to close the distance, interrogating her fiercely. My raw desperation visibly startled Mason. Scarlet, you're taking this theater too far. I get it. You want to grab my attention. Shut the hell up. Unable to contain myself any longer, I roared at him. Chloe flinched in fright. I don't know. I directly grabbed her by the collar, squeezing near her throat. I am asking you one last time. Where is she? Chloe's face flushed a deep crimson. I truly don't know. I just happened to run into her when I was buying something. The little girl asked me if I knew Mason, saying she was looking for him. Under the terrifying weight of my glare, Chloe stammered out. Then I told her I didn't know him and walked away. I didn't see her after that. Do you honestly take me for a fool? Let me tell you this: if anything happens to my daughter, I will make you pay with your life. Tossing those words behind me, I sprinted out of the venue. Chloe's story was a mix of half-truths, but I didn't have a second to waste interrogating her further. I quickly called Oliver, telling him to pull the security footage from the surrounding intersections and shop entrances. Chloe had undoubtedly crossed paths with my daughter, but the shifty look in her eyes proved she was concealing the rest of the story. Act VI, the rescue. After reviewing the traffic cameras, we discovered Lily had been coaxed into an unmarked black vehicle. I followed the trail all the way to a remote, desolate village far out in the countryside, miles away from any major roads. Oliver arrived shortly after with a squad of bodyguards. Fearing for Lily's safety, we fanned out to search. When I finally found my daughter, she was covered in dirt, and her pretty floral dress was shredded by wild briars. She was weeping hysterically, clutching my clothes tightly the second she was in my arms. Mommy, baby thought I'd never see you again. I was so scared. Mommy, wah. Once I confirmed she had no major injuries, I turned my gaze to the rural couple standing nearby. We bought that little brat with cold hard cash. She's going to be a child bride for my son. You can't just take her away. The man shouted coarsely, adopting the aggressive stance of a local thug. Exactly. We paid good money for her. If you dare take her, I'll call the police on you. The old crone chimed in viciously. A bitter, furious laugh escaped my throat. The thieves were playing the victims. I carried Lily over to a quiet corner and spoke softly. Sweetheart, stay here for just a moment while Mommy handles something, okay? Despite her absolute terror, Lily had always been entirely obedient to my words. I tied my silk scarf gently around the little girl's eyes. Sweetheart, count from 1 to 100, and Mommy will come take you home. With her eyes covered, Lily began counting seriously, tapping her tiny fingers together. 1, 2, 3. The warmth in my eyes vanish, replaced by a murderous frost. I strode directly up to the couple, snatched a heavy wooden chair from the porch, and smashed it straight over the man's head. I had trained in Taekwondo for several years. While I might not be a match for someone of Oliver's stature, breaking these two human traffickers was child's play. By the time Oliver and his security detail arrived, the conflict was drawing to a close. The couple lay bruised and battered on the ground, blood streaming from the man's scalp. Their eyes swollen shut, the husband spat blood, glaring at me with raw venom. "I'm going to report you. I'll make sure you rot in prison." I massaged my aching knuckles and replied coldly, "The ones going to prison are you. Let me educate you on the law. Child trafficking carries a mandatory sentence of 5 to 10 years minimum. I've already dialed the authorities for you. Prepare to spend the rest of your pathetic lives behind bars. Trust me, I have more than enough power to ensure that happens." Lily's counting was nearing its end. I gently scooped her up and walked out of the compound. As I passed Oliver, I gave him a brief look. "Handle the cleanup." Back at the villa, Lily's emotions gradually stabilized, and she recounted what had happened. She explained that she had asked Chloe for directions. Chloe, mistakenly assuming Lily was Mason's secret child, maliciously told her that if she got into that specific black car, it would take her straight to Mason. Lily, completely naive, had climbed inside. My daughter looked up at me with innocent, confused eyes. "Mommy, why did that auntie lie to me? I got in the car, but it didn't take me to the mean uncle. Those people yelled at me, locked me up, and wouldn't give me any food. They said if I didn't behave, they'd starve me for days. I felt so sad and scared today, Mommy. But now that you're here, it doesn't hurt anymore." Once Lily fell into a deep sleep, Oliver walked into the room carrying a medical kit. "I'll handle Chloe personally," Oliver said, an absolute Arctic aura surrounding him. This time, Chloe had truly crossed his ultimate boundary. He took hold of my wrist and rolled up my sleeve, revealing a massive, purple contusion along my forearm. "No need, I can settle my own scores," I said, shaking my head. The hand applying the ointment suddenly stiffened, and a sharp jolt of pain shot up my arm as he deliberately applied pressure. Oliver's voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "I wasn't asking for your permission." Realizing his tone had become too severe, he moderated his voice slightly and added, "That couple will never see the light of day again. The driver who transported her has already been apprehended." I gave a soft murmur of assent. I knew Oliver would handle those details thoroughly. An awkward silence fell between us as he continued to apply the medicine. Just as I was about to ask him to leave, he suddenly threw a question out of nowhere. "Are you still hoping to rekindle things with Mason Sterling?" I violently tried to yank my wrist back, but Oliver seemed to have anticipated my temper perfectly. He clamped down tightly on my arm, refusing to let me escape his grasp. Oliver continued, his gaze locked onto mine. "Scarlett, give me a real chance. I am not inferior to Mason in any way." Before I could formulate an answer, his phone chimed inappropriately. It was an unrecognized number. Oliver moved to reject the call, but I intervened. "Answer it. What if it's an update regarding the driver?" The moment the line connected, Mason's panicked voice leaked through the speaker once again. "Ollie, is your phone busted or something? I couldn't get through to your main line at all. It turns out Scarlett actually has a daughter. You helped me bring Chloe to the gala." Though Oliver terminated the call with lightning speed, every syllable of Mason's words had vibrated clearly through the room. When an explanation was impossible, Oliver chose absolute silence. Act 7. Retribution. The following morning, without a word to anyone, I marched straight down to Chloe's local coffee shop. Coincidentally, Mason was there as well. "Miss Avery, you?" Chloe stepped forward to greet me. I raised my hand and delivered a savage slap across her face. The force was immense, and her cheek ballooned instantly. Mason reacted with instinctive speed, pulling Chloe protectively behind his back. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I stared at him with venomous detachment. "Move out of the way, or I'll beat you down along with her." Mason's eyes widened in disbelief. "Have you lost your mind? If there's an issue, talk about it. Why do you have to resort to violence? If Chloe offended you somehow, I'll apologize on her behalf, all right?" Seeing his relentless shielding of her caused my fury to completely boil over. "Mason Sterling, this is far beyond your ability to manage. Because of this disgusting woman, my daughter was sold to a primitive village in the middle of nowhere. If I hadn't found her in time, God knows what horrors she would have endured. If I don't extract this debt from her skin, who else should I look for?" By the end of my sentence, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. Mason stood frozen, completely dumbfounded. That little girl, she really is your daughter, I thought. He slowly turned to look at Chloe. Chloe, did you actually? Chloe clutched her swollen cheek, tears pouring down her face. She bit her lip hard, her gaze remaining defiant. I didn't. Miss Avery, if you want to frame me, you should at least come up with a more believable lie. Mason turned back to me, trying to smooth things over. Scarlett, could there be a misunderstanding? Chloe is always so sweet and gentle. There's no way she could be involved in something so monstrous. Chloe chimed in. Exactly, Miss Avery. To catch a thief, you need the loot. Show me the evidence before you try to ruin my character. From an angle Mason couldn't see, Chloe's eyes gleamed with smug arrogance. She had majored in computer technology in college. Erasing a brief snippet of security footage from a public camera was child's play to her. What she didn't realize was that recovering erased data was just as effortless for me. I pulled out my tablet and shoved the restored security footage right into Mason's face. Caught red-handed. This video file is going straight to the police precinct. How they handle it is their department, I said coldly, but before they take her, you and I are going to settle our own account. In the footage, the vicious, sadistic smirk on Chloe's face as my daughter climbed into the vehicle was unmistakable. It burned itself into Mason's mind. It was as if he were seeing the woman next to him for the very first time. He couldn't utter a single syllable. I bypassed him entirely, lunged forward, grabbed Chloe by her hair, and slammed her skull violently against the brick wall. Mason, save me, she shrieked. Jolting out of his stupor, Mason wrapped his arms around me, pinning my upper body. For the first time in his life, his tone turned entirely submissive and begging. Scarlett, please, for the sake of all the years we spent growing up together, let Chloe go just this once. I swear on my life, nothing like this will ever happen again. I wrenched my arms out of his grip, my actions delivering an unambiguous answer. Never. Seeing me close the distance toward Chloe once more, panic overrode Mason's reason. He grabbed a heavy ceramic vase from a nearby shelf and smashed it directly against the side of my head. Scarlett. Oh my God, Scarlett, are you okay? I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't. Don't be scared. I'll take you to the hospital right now. Mason's voice dissolved into frantic, stuttering chaos. Shards of ceramic exploded across the floorboards, quickly followed by the patter of thick, crimson blood dripping from my brow. My vision blurred into a crimson haze. A violent wave of vertigo hit me, draining every ounce of physical strength from my limbs. I stumbled backward, shoving away the frantic hands Mason extended to steady me, trying desperately to stay upright. Scarlett. Just as the darkness claimed me, I collapsed into a solid, muscular embrace. Oliver's voice, shaking with an absolute, terrifying rage, was the last thing that registered in my mind before everything went black. Act 8. The dominoes fall. I remained confined to a hospital bed for an entire month. During that time, Oliver banned absolutely everyone from entering my room. Mason attempted to force his way in multiple times, only to be physically thrown out of the building by Oliver's private security detail. Oliver had completely unleashed his wrath this time, executing a scorched earth strategy against the Sterling family's enterprise. Within a single week, Mason's family businesses suffered catastrophic, irreversible losses. Driven to desperation, Mason caused a massive scene in the hospital lobby, demanding to know why Oliver was destroying his family. Oliver granted him only a single icy syllable: get out. Realizing that avenue was completely blocked, Mason turned his sights back to me. The day I was finally discharged and returned home, a massive arrangement of crimson roses arrived at the villa, accompanied by a card. The most beautiful flowers for the most beautiful woman. I immediately ordered the guards to throw them into the incinerator and had the entire foyer thoroughly sanitized. Oliver happened to walk down from the second floor just as the staff was clearing the remains. The two of you grew up together, yet he doesn't even know you're severely allergic to pollen? It sounded like a casual observation, but in reality, he was digging another tactical ditch for his rival. The man was thoroughly, brilliantly devious. I shot him a pointed look and fired back. We grew up together too, yet I had no idea you were executing so many operations behind my back. That anonymous video back then, you were the one who sent it to me, weren't you? Oliver didn't bother denying it. I simply didn't want to see you played for a fool. Over the following days, Mason repeatedly engineered coincidental encounters on my daily routes. Oliver merely pushed his gold-rimmed glasses up his nose and went to work. Suddenly, Chloe's milk tea establishment was flagged for operating without a license, alongside severe tax evasion. Furthermore, multiple customers mysteriously reported finding hazardous foreign objects in their beverages, resulting in a wave of severe food poisoning cases. Chloe was promptly hauled away in handcuffs by federal investigators. Mason was frantic, exhausting every connection and dollar to pull her out of custody, but Oliver applied massive counter-pressure on the judicial system, leaving Mason completely paralyzed, left with no other choices. Mason tracked me down. Scarlett, look, whatever grievance you and I have is between us, but Chloe is completely innocent in this. Can't you show some mercy? Do you have any idea what a criminal record will do to her? It will ruin her entire life. Don't bother denying it. I know you're the mastermind pulling the strings behind all of this. If you agree to drop the charges and let Chloe walk, I am willing to go register our marriage certificate with you immediately. He paused, clearing his throat. What happened last time was an accident born of sheer panic, but you're perfectly fine now, aren't you? Besides, Ollie has completely severed ties with me because of you, and he's cost my family millions in damages. I'm willing to overlook all of that. Let's just call it even. Hearing his words, an involuntary laugh escaped my lips. If there had been even a shred of childhood sentiment left within me before, it had been permanently obliterated the exact second he brought that vase down on my head. There was nothing left between us but ash. Mason Sterling. Debts must be paid, and crimes must be answered for. The exact second Chloe targeted my daughter, she sealed her own fate. Now get out of my sight, I said, waving my hand for security to remove him. Scarlett, I don't want to push things to an ugly extreme and destroy whatever history we have left. If you force my hand, don't blame me for using this. Mason slowly pulled a sleek digital recording pen from his breast pocket. Our entire conversation just now has been recorded. Don't force my hand, Scarlett. I looked at him with complete indifference. Then go ahead and submit it. Let's see if it manages to buy her freedom. The following morning, Mason was placed under strict house arrest by his own parents. Oliver informed me that Mason had marched confidently into the police precinct with the recording pen, aiming to prove that the entire operation was a malicious conspiracy orchestrated by me to frame Chloe. However, the moment the authorities pressed play on the recording device, the entire room fell into a stunned, dead silence. What echoed through the speakers wasn't a conversation between us at all. Instead, a cheerful children's song blasted through the room. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. Baby shark, do 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 do. The upbeat, ridiculous melody reverberated loudly across the precinct lobby. The expressions on the faces of everyone present were spectacular. The incident was leaked to the media almost instantly. Headlines mocked the eldest heir of the Sterling Empire for making an absolute laughingstock of himself at a police station over a girl from the provinces. His reputation within elite circles sank to the absolute bottom. The Sterling elders took a hardline stance. But Mason proved even more stubborn. He publicly announced, if you want me to marry Scarlett Avery, then make her release Chloe first, otherwise, there will be no wedding. His defiance enraged the family patriarch so severely that traditional corporate disciplinary measures were enacted against him. The Sterling family attempted to bring peace offerings to our estate, but they were turned away at the gates without exception. Seeing that I was entirely unapproachable, the Sterlings went directly to my parents. I gave my family a brief summary of the situation and explicitly stated that the engagement was permanently terminated. If anyone from the Sterling family shows up here again, have security throw them out immediately, no exceptions. Act 9. The Edge of the Abyss. With Oliver quietly applying pressure behind the scenes, Chloe was ultimately sentenced to 15 years in a maximum security penitentiary. Upon hearing the verdict, her sanity completely fractured. Following an official psychiatric evaluation by a state-appointed board, she was transferred directly to a high-security asylum. When the news reached Mason, he didn't throw a tantrum or rage. He merely gave me a long, unreadable look filled with complex emotions. 2 months later, an inmate quietly vanished from the asylum wards. It occurred completely under the radar. Not a single staff member noticed her absence. That afternoon, I received an unexpected phone call from Lily's preschool teacher, Lily's mother. Excuse me, did you arrange for someone to pick her up early today? The teacher's voice was trembling with barely concealed panic. My mind went entirely blank. My daughter isn't at the school. She was here during morning recess, but when we gathered the children for the afternoon activity, she was nowhere to be found. We assumed a parent had checked her out. Please don't panic, Mrs. Vance. Our entire staff is searching the grounds right now. The teacher sounded on the verge of tears. Hanging up immediately, I dialed Oliver, learning that our daughter was missing. Oliver abandoned his board meeting instantly, ordering his entire security force to launch a dragnet. A moment later, a text message from an unknown number flashed onto my screen. I have your daughter, if you want her to stay breathing. Come up to the rooftop of the central hospital alone. If I catch sight of a single person accompanying you, I will throw her off the edge immediately. Chloe, a murderous, absolute chill settled deep into my bones. A drive that normally required 40 minutes across heavy traffic took me less than 15 as I tore through the city, blowing past every single red light. When I burst onto the rooftop, my heart stopped. Lily was tied hand and foot with heavy nylon rope, her tiny face streaked with tears and dirt. Chloe was standing right at the precipice of the roof, holding my daughter. A single step backward would plunge them both into the abyss. I forced my breathing to steady, trying to keep my voice neutral. What do you want? Chloe's eyes were bloodshot and completely manic. Scarlett Avery, you finally have to look up at me, don't you? You want me to let your brat go? Fine. Get down on your knees and beg me. Crawl like a dog and beg, and maybe I'll consider it. I shook my head slowly, keeping my eyes locked on her. You won't. Even if I kneeled and tore my soul apart begging you, you wouldn't let her go. All you want is to inflict as much agony on me as possible. I shifted my gaze to my daughter. Sweetheart, don't look down. Mommy is right here. Chloe let out a screeching, ragged laugh. Why? Why were you born an elite heiress who has the entire world handed to her on a silver platter? Why did everyone have to revolve around you, while I was forced into a squalid, abusive family? It's not fair. I refused to accept it. Recognizing that her psychological stability was entirely gone, I immediately adjusted my strategy to avoid provoking her further. Do you have any idea what those 2 months in that asylum did to me? The inmates beat me. They threw rotting carcasses into my bed. They poured freezing water over me while I slept, and the guards whipped me whenever they felt like it. I wanted to die, but they wouldn't even grant me the mercy of suicide. Scarlett, I'm going to make sure you realize that leaving me alive was the single greatest mistake you and your husband ever made. A cold shudder ran down my spine. Oliver, he actually infiltrated the asylum to ensure she paid. Chloe, you're still young. You still have your whole life ahead of you. Are you truly willing to throw everything away for this? I paused, trying to offer a lifeline. Let my daughter go. I will wire a massive sum of money to an offshore account for you. You can disappear to a country where no one knows your history. Chloe erupted into a mocking scream of laughter. Scarlett, do you honestly think I fear death anymore? My only desire now is to drag you down to hell with me. Seeing the situation spiraling entirely out of control, I threw out the only card left. What about Mason? Are you truly willing to abandon Mason Sterling forever? At the mention of his name, Chloe's manic expression flickered. Her grip on Lily loosened slightly as she froze. Mason, she whispered to herself then, her face contorted back into venomous rage. Mason doesn't want me anymore. It's all because of you. The second he broke me out of that asylum, he drew a hard line between us. Tears of raw bitterness spilled from her eyes. Scarlett, why does everyone love you? Do you have any idea how exhausting it was? Every single day, I had to study your habits, your expressions, your preferences, just so Mason would look at me. He told me 1,000 times that he liked me, but he never once said he loved me. I knew it. I always knew the truth. He was looking at you through me the entire time. Your pride is too immense. You would never bend your neck to him. So Mason molded a version of Scarlett that would actually obey him. I was nothing more than your perfect, compliant reflection. The afternoon he struck you with that vase, he drank himself into a stupor. That was the first time he ever lost control. He took a knife and stabbed his own forearm repeatedly in remorse. If the maids hadn't discovered him, he would have severed his own tendons. No, Chloe. Mason loves you, I said, looking her dead in the eye as I revealed the truth. He threatened me, risked his family's survival, and completely threw away his reputation just to force me to drop the charges against you. Chloe's eyes went entirely blank, her focus shattering. Is that true? Mason did all of that for me? A second later, she shook her head violently, screaming, No, you're lying to me. You're trying to trick me. Suddenly, Mason's voice cut through the wind from behind us. Chloe, stop this madness. Don't ruin your life any further. Chloe flinched violently, her eyes darting around in absolute terror. The one thing she dreaded above all else was allowing Mason to witness her in her most twisted, hideous state, yet her worst nightmare had manifested. Mason was drenched in sweat, his chest heaving violently from sprinting up the stairwell. He looked at me, his eyes filled with raw exhaustion. "I am so sorry, Scarlett. I brought this nightmare to your doorstep." Seeing Mason's gaze instinctively return to me triggered Chloe's final psychological break. "Scarlett Avery, I am going to make sure you suffer for the rest of your miserable life." With a final, mad screech, she threw her body backward off the ledge, dragging my daughter along with her. No. Act X. Final reckoning. Beyond that ledge lay a vertical drop of hundreds of feet. A fall meant absolute, instantaneous death. Before my brain could even process the horror, my instincts took over completely. My body lunged forward across the concrete. Simultaneously, Mason dove forward, his fingers snapping shut around the fabric of Chloe's gown. I slammed my torso against the edge of the parapet, my hands wrapping desperately around the rough nylon rope binding my daughter, arresting her fall, inch by inch, straining every muscle in my body. I began hauling Lily upward, just as Lily's hands reached the lip of the roof. The final catastrophe struck. Chloe's eyes cleared, darkening into an expression of absolute resolve. She violently ripped her arm away from Mason's desperate grasp. Then, she wrapped her arms tightly around Lily's small frame, throwing her entire body weight downward. The sudden, immense kinetic force yanked me clear over the ledge. In that critical fraction of a second, Mason lunged across the gap, his fingers clamping like iron around my left wrist. My body, along with Chloe and Lily, hung suspended in midair, buffeted by the howling wind. "Chloe Smith, do you want Mason to plunge to his death with us?" I roared at the top of my lungs, my voice cracking with fury. Chloe's entire body stiffened. She lifted her head slowly, her gaze softening into a pure, tragic devotion as she looked up at Mason. "Mason, I'm sorry, and I love you." With those final words, she released her grip on Lily, allowing her body to drop into the sky below. "No." Mason's scream rent the air, his eyes nearly bursting from their sockets. Fortunately, Oliver burst onto the roof with his security detail at that exact moment. Hands reached over the precipice, and both my daughter and I were hauled back to safety. Mason collapsed onto the concrete, staring blankly into the void, his soul entirely hollowed out. Lily was profoundly traumatized by the ordeal, requiring an entire month of intensive psychological rehabilitation to smile again. Epilogue. A week later, Mason left the city, leaving behind a single handwritten letter for me. "Scarlett, I am deeply, profoundly sorry for the wreckage I brought into your life because of my arrogance. Your daughter nearly lost her life, and Chloe lost hers. I am consumed by an agonizing guilt, but I know remorse changes nothing. When I first met Chloe, she reminded me so much of how you were during our university days, radiant, fiercely independent, yet carrying a distinct sharpness. Sometimes, even I couldn't distinguish whether I loved you or if I loved her. The day I struck you, I wanted nothing more than to sever my own hand. When Chloe fell, I felt an absolute hollow void tear through my chest. Perhaps I am exactly what the world says I am, a wretched, unfaithful man whose heart was broken between two women. I am leaving. We will likely never cross paths again in this lifetime. In the next life, if the universe allows us to meet again, I promise I will hold your hand with absolute devotion and never look away. In this life, I yield you to Ali. I truly hope you find absolute, permanent happiness. May you never encounter a piece of garbage like me again. Goodbye." I held the parchment in my hands, my gaze drifting out toward the distant horizon, remaining silent for a very long time. Behind me, Oliver stood in absolute, unwavering silence, offering his quiet, eternal presence.